In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how I paid off $200,000 in loans in 2 years. If you want to find out how I did that, stay tuned as I will be sharing with you my story. And don't forget to stay till the end so that I can share with you all of my best secrets. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Lindsay Marie. I am a board-certified family medicine physician. On this channel, I like to share a message of hope, health, and wellness for the mind, body, and soul, but today's video is obviously about finance. Don't worry, I'll still be sharing a message of hope, as I will tell you how you can pay off your loan as well. Now you may be thinking, who is this Dr. Chick in front of me and how is she so qualified in finance to be able to tell me how to pay off that amount of money in that amount of time? Well, here is my disclaimer. I don't claim to be a financial expert by any means, but I do have a huge interest in finance and a little bit of knowledge. So this video will be me simply sharing my story, my knowledge, my experience, and don't forget, my secrets toward financial freedom. If you are not a medical student, resident, or doctor like myself, don't worry, this video can still apply to you as some of the same basic principles can be relevant no matter what your debt to income ratio is. So with that being said, let's get started. But first, I would like to give you guys a little bit of background of where my knowledge and interest in finance comes from. So taking it way back to when I was younger, you know how they say your childhood experiences shape the rest of your life? Well, that's basically true. I grew up in your average middle-class family, and like most Americans, my family was in a lot of debt. You know, the typical scenario of working paycheck to paycheck just to make ends meet. Well, I saw how these financial burdens really affected my parents, and that made my mom really adamant about getting out of debt. So watching her try to go through that process of getting out of debt, I learned a lot of my basic financial information from her. And it ingrained this thought in my mind that debt is bad. Don't have debt. I also always remembered my dad watching Susie Orman on the TV, and though I didn't really like her voice at the time, I think those messages subconsciously seeped into my brain. So these experiences led to me being the kid who valued saving money over spending money. But maybe I went to the extreme with it because at times my friends would make fun of me. They would call me cheapo, penny pincher, but the worst of all, stingy. But I couldn't help it. As a result of growing up borderline poor, I decided I needed to choose a career to go into where I didn't have to worry about money. So what did I do? I chose a career in medicine. I know, what was I thinking, right? Anyone who's in medicine knows the high cost it takes to even get into this career, and not to mention all the hard work and sacrifices. I mean, you don't even see your first paycheck until 8 years after high school. But that didn't stop me because the real reason I went into medicine is because I had a heart for helping and serving others. Alright, now that you guys have that little bit of background story on me, let's get into the numbers. Let's go over what it cost me to become a doctor. So starting off in college, my undergraduate education cost a total of $40,000. Neither myself nor my family had the means to pay for this up front, but I was fortunate that I had the help of my parents, and my mom took out a parent loan to cover the cost. Then we made an agreement and decided that I would pay her back half of the total cost. So thanks to my mom helping me out, my total cost for my undergraduate college education was a total of $20,000. Now let's talk about the much more expensive medical school. I was in medical school from 2008 to 2012. I did go to a school in my own state, so I got in-state tuition, and the average yearly cost of that was $22,000. After doing some research, I am aware that the cost of medical school these days is a lot higher. And I'm not quite sure how much the government offers per year, but when I went to school, the government was offering me up to $50,000 per year to attend medical school. So calculating out what I might need for living expenses in addition to my in-state tuition, I decided in the first year of medical school that I only needed to take out $35,000. And for the most part, I survived on that, but in the second year, I decided to take out $40,000. In the third year, I increased it again and took out $45,000. And in my fourth year of medical school, I knew I needed even a little more money because this was the year I was going to be going to Australia for a month for one of my medical school international rotations. as well as going to be applying to residency and traveling around the US to attend interviews. So in that year, I took out the maximum amount the government would loan me, which was $50,000. This brings me to a grand total of $170,000 in loans that I took out for my medical school education. As you can see, this is $30,000 less than the maximum amount they offered me, which brings me to tip number 1, don't take out more money than you need. For Pete's sake, don't take out more than you need because you are going to pay for it in the end with interest. When it comes to interest rates on loans, there are a few different types of loans that we need to discuss. The first type is the private loans, which tend to have much higher interest rates. And then there are the federal loans, which are supplied by the government, and they have varying but set interest rates. There are 2 types of federal loans, and they include subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans. A subsidized loan is a loan where the government pays the interest for you during your schooling so that you don't acquire as much interest along the way. An unsubsidized loan is a loan by the government that acquires interest as soon as you take out the loan. Anyone can qualify for an unsubsidized loan, however, you may or may not qualify for a subsidized loan, which is actually better for you. So with all of that being said, because I had both subsidized and unsubsidized loans, I walked out of medical school with another $10,000 in debt due to my unsubsidized loans acquiring interest throughout my medical school. That's going to bring me to a total of $180,000 in debt for my medical school education. Add on my $20,000 from my undergraduate education, and I have a grand total of $200,000 in debt that I have to owe back for the cost of becoming a doctor. So the next stop on the timeline for anyone becoming a doctor is residency. So if that's you and you're a resident, woohoo, congrats! You finally made it to your first paycheck. Now, granted, you are making less than minimum wage, which is probably less than $8 an hour for the amount of hours that you are working, but nevertheless, you're making money. And the important thing is to be wise with the money you're making. Which brings me to tip number 2, which is you want to start paying back your loan as soon as possible. After you graduate medical school and transition into residency and start making money, the government is going to offer you 2 choices. Choice number 1, do you want to defer your loans throughout your entire residency, meaning you don't have to worry about paying them back at all during that time? Your loans will be put on hold until you finish your residency. The advantage of deferring your loan during residency is that you don't have to worry about making an extra payment during one of the most stressful times in your life when you're spending up to 80 hours at the hospital every week. The disadvantage of deferring your loan throughout residency is that you will be acquiring interest each year that you are a resident, not paying that loan back. And unfortunately, any interest not paid has the chance to compound and capitalize onto the principal of your loan, which is a concept we will go over in just a little bit. Choice number 2, do you want to have the option to start paying back your loan right now? The advantage of paying back your loan during residency is obviously that you won't acquire as much interest and capitalization of that interest on your loan. The disadvantage of paying back your loan throughout residency may be at times that you are feeling a little stressed out. Maybe if you have any emergency costs, it would be tight payment for that month. I do realize not everybody has the option to pay back their loans during residency. For instance, if you have a family and let's say you have 5 kids or something, that would be a little hard to start paying back your loan on your residency salary. However, if at all possible you are able to start paying back your loan during residency, you are going to be far more ahead than your peers when it comes to paying back your medical school loan. So quickly, I would like to just touch on the topics of principal versus interest when it comes to your loans. The principal of your loan is going to be the baseline amount that you took out. In my case, it was $170,000. And interest on your loan is going to be based on a percentage rate that is applied to your total principal per year. Now listen closely. This is the part that some people, if you're not a financial expert, may not know about, and that is the concept of capitalization. Each year, and especially during periods when you're not paying back your loans, any interest amount that is applied to your loan that is not paid by the end of the year will then become capitalized, meaning it's tacked onto your principal, which basically means your principal is automatically growing without you even realizing it. And I don't know about you, but I want my loan to be decreasing, not increasing. One thing I forgot to mention when paying back your loans, you want to be paying your highest interest rate loan first. And also you want to be paying back your unsubsidized loans first, because those are the ones accumulating interest as you go. So that is another reason why paying back your loan throughout residency, or at least as soon as you can, will give you an advantage. That way you don't have to worry about your interest rates capitalizing and adding to your principal. Because the higher the principal, the higher the interest rate then becomes, and then it's just a snowball effect. And some people have a really hard time at getting a handle on their loans. And that's what I'm here for, to help you through this process. Now let's talk about repayment plans. So there are a ton of repayment plans that the government will offer you. They are all listed on their website. Some may be geared for you to pay off your loan in 10 years, 20 years, maybe even 30 years. But I'm going to be going over one type of repayment plan today, and it's the one that I recommend for you, as it is the one that I used and it worked really well for me. And that is the income-based repayment plan. The income-based repayment plan is a student loan repayment program in the United States that regulates the amount one needs to pay each month basing on one's current income and family size. Basically, the gist of this plan is if you make little, you pay little, and that's perfect when you're in residency. The amount that you are required to pay back is based on a percentage rate, and I believe it caps at 15%, meaning they would not require you to pay any higher than 15% of your income. In fact, when I was a resident, as a family medicine resident, I was making anywhere from $48,000 to $51,000 per year, and I don't remember my income-based repayment loan being any more than $100 per month. So as long as you're not having any extra financial emergencies, or you're not that person who has 5 kids, you can see how this is pretty doable. So in conclusion of this topic, my tip number 3 for you guys is to choose an income-based repayment plan. And the reason is because you can see you are required to pay a minimum payment for your loan, and if you have any additional funds, you can also apply to your loan. All right, now that we have gone through the nitty-gritty of the different types of loans, the difference between interest and principal of your loan, and the different repayment plans, let's talk about what it's like after residency. After you graduate from residency is when you can really start paying back your loan if that's something that's really important to you. In my residency program, right before we graduated, they had a financial advisor come to speak to us. And this financial advisor was telling us everything that we needed to know in regards to becoming a doctor. He touched on factors that all doctors need to look into when finally making their full income potential. This includes things like paying back your loan and looking into certain insurances that you may need as a physician. One of those being disability insurance, which is very important for most physicians because it's protecting the investment on your career. If you were to become disabled for any reason and you could no longer practice medicine, this insurance would cover you for that. Then he talked about life insurance as well as investments and retirement funds. I remember he had some sort of spreadsheet or graph that he showed us that showed exactly what percentage of your money you should be putting into each area. I remember taking in all of this information and thinking to myself, well, that's not how I'm going to go about doing things, and I wonder what he's going to say about it. You see, my plan all along was to focus solely on my loan and to have it paid off within 2 years. That was my goal, and I accomplished it. But when I told this financial advisor my plan and how it maybe didn't focus more on investments but focused on debt repayment, he looks at me and he says, "You, my dear, have an emotional attachment to your debt." And he proceeded to point out to me that he would not only focus on debt, but also focus on your disability and life insurance as well as your investments. So with that being said, everybody has the chance to deal with their finances as they see fit. This is just the way I chose to do it, and it's worked out very well for me. I did take his advice and I did get disability insurance. However, I felt at the time I did not need life insurance. But besides all of that insurance stuff and investment stuff, let's talk about tip number 4, which is budgeting and living within your means. Now, an official budget is a plan that you make for yourself that sets aside a certain amount of money for certain things that you spend on. I myself am not an expert in budgeting, but I do believe in the power of writing things down when it comes to what you spend. And it's something I've always done and always got in the habit of, even when I was younger. When it comes to writing everything down that I spend, I like to equate it to someone trying to lose weight and writing down exactly how many calories they take in. You never know how many calories you're taking in unless you write them down. And if you're not expending more calories than you're taking in, suddenly you become obese. Well, the same thing goes for money. You never know how much money you're spending unless you write it down, and if you're spending out more than you're taking in, suddenly you end up in debt. So I just want to show you guys my basic notebook that I've used for years when it comes to writing down exactly what I spend. And this was my spending notebook for when I first graduated from residency, and it was July 2015. And as you can see, I was pretty excited about it, as I wrote here at the top, I'm a real doctor now. So now I want to give you guys an idea of what kind of bills I had during that time and a rough estimate of the amount of money that I spent each month after I graduated from residency. So here we go. In July of 2015, which was my first month out of residency, I was living in an apartment at the time after my homeless experience. If you guys haven't watched that video, I'll have it linked below. But I was living in a small box apartment, probably less than 700 square feet, and my rent for that apartment was $886. Internet payment, $58. Car insurance, this I only pay every 6 months, but at the time it was $400. Car payment, $196. Storage payment, also from my homeless experience, $170. Phone payment, $80. Electrical bill, $80. And my loan payment, which at the time, due to income-based repayment, was only $100. So that's just a basic breakdown of what kind of bills I had at the time, but I did want to let you guys know 2 months later I was approved for disability insurance like we talked about, and my payment for my disability insurance per month was $177. So let's just say September 2015 was a more normal month for me, as I didn't have my car insurance in there. And I have a calculator here for you. I'm going to just add up my bills. So $886 for rent comes to a grand total of $1,760 for my bills. So those are all my bills. Then I have down here all of my miscellaneous spending, which just includes things like gas, food, sometimes trips or entertainment for fun. That averaged out to be another $1,500 per month. So plus $1,500 equals anywhere from $3,000 to $3,200, let's say, average per month. But to keep things simple, let's just call it $3,000 a month is what I was spending after I graduated residency. So that's how much money I was spending out. Now let's talk about how much money I was earning. At the time, as a family medicine physician, I was working in urgent care. So I did not get paid based on salary. I was being paid based on hourly wages. Therefore, my salary did range per month as well. But to be just completely honest with you guys about how much I was earning at the time, based on my hourly wage for the amount of hours that I worked per month, I was making anywhere from $9,000 to $12,000 per month. So to keep things simple in that category, let's just say I was bringing home an average of $10,000 per month. Now it's time to do some more basic math. If I'm taking home an average of $10,000 per month and I am spending out an average of $3,000 per month, that means I have an average of $7,000 left over per month that I can use however I want. I will say, if you're the type of person that wants to buy a new car or a new house right after residency, this plan of paying back your loan within 2 years is probably not going to work for you. But if you're the type of person that can hold off for a little while to pay back your loan, then you'll be surprised at how well you're set up financially later on in life. Which is why it's important to still live within your means even after residency so that you can get a handle on this loan repayment. So how did it all work out for me? Well, you heard the financial advisor. Since I have an emotional attachment to my debt, that was the first thing I wanted to pay off. And therefore, I applied every single thing that I earned outside of my bills and living expenses toward my loan. And this sheet of paper is how I kept track of all of that. It is not some fancy Excel spreadsheet. It's the old school method of just writing things down. And don't worry, you guys, I wasn't too strict on myself. As you can see, I wrote myself a little reminder note right here, which says, stay the course, enjoy life, and don't stress. But this is how it happened, folks. Now cue the loan repayment montage, and I will show you exactly how those numbers went down. Okay, hold up. Before we get into that montage, you said you were going to pay $7,000 per month toward your loan for 24 months. That's only, if you do the math, $7,000 times 24 months, which is 2 years. That's only $168,000. Which brings me to one of my loan repayment secrets that I wanted to tell you guys about, and that is using a 0% interest credit card to your advantage. In case you might not be aware, or if you are still a resident, you might not know that as doctors, we get offered tons of loans through our banks and credit cards with very high amounts of credit line, I will let you know. And if you're smart financially, you can use these toward your advantage. For example, I had the idea to take advantage of one of these credit card offers for me. And at the time, this particular credit card offered me up to $10,000 with 0% interest for 1 full year. If you are a doctor and come across an opportunity like this, I urge you to take it because, as you can see, taking a chunk of $10,000 off of your principal loan toward a credit card with 0% interest is going to put you at a huge advantage. The only stipulation to this is you must pay it off within the year so that you don't skyrocket your interest up to something like 12 or 13%, which is what most credit card interest rates are at these days. So this is something that I did about halfway through my loan repayment within the 2 years, and it really helped get me ahead. Now, without any further ado, cue the loan repayment montage. Thanks for watching that beautiful progression of my debt being knocked down. I would like to explain to you guys, on certain months you saw my debt going down more than $7,000, and in those times it was probably in months where I had worked more, so I had more money to be able to pay toward my loan. Also, I just wanted to mention that during tax season, I had it set up to where I would get the maximum amount back on my tax returns, and that also really helped in applying toward my loan repayment. So overall, there were a few variances in there, and some months I wasn't able to pay $7,000, but some months I was able to pay more than $7,000 toward my loan. In the end, I came down to $0 left to be owed toward my medical school education in the month of October of 2017, which is just 2 years and 2 months after I graduated residency. I had finally reached financial freedom and I was no longer in debt. After that, as you can imagine, I didn't have a single debt or loan repayment to worry about. Therefore, I could focus my remaining $7,000 toward my investments and building my retirement fund. I'm extremely happy with the way things turned out for me. After another year of savings and investing, I was able to take a full year off of clinical medicine, and I was able to travel the world and go on a mission trip, which I loved, before returning back to clinical medicine. So there you have it, folks. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I know not everybody is in the exact same situation I was in to be able to pay off your loan, but I hope that these principles that I have offered to you today can apply toward your situation and that you can be motivated and disciplined to start paying back your loan as I did. If you have any other questions for me, make sure you leave it in the comments section. I would be happy to answer those for you. I have new videos out every Monday and now new videos out every Friday, so be sure to subscribe and I will see you on the next video. Until next time, bye!